actually became part of a campaign, of a candidate. So the political involvement is not really there. For most of respondents, for most of women, civic engagement equals voting during elections. Only 17% say they were a member of a civic or community volunteer group. And this is probably, the reason this is probably so is the women would say, because we're busy doing the chores at home, we're busy taking care of our children, we're busy with cleaning the house and doing the laundry. We don't have any more time to do extracurriculars. And yeah, a similar percentage, 17%, wrote commentary or reacted or took time to share their thoughts on internet sites. So what does this tell us? We have perceptions, we have stereotypes, but I think what this survey does is really supply us with actual hard data, empirical data. So we're seeing that very clearly there is a disconnect between reality, what women are saying, this is what it should be. It is different from what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. Stereotypes still persist insofar as roles and actions are concerned. Third, the traditional roles are still there. Even if both men and women say that no, these tasks should be equally shared, in reality, it's still the women who take on these tasks and do the day-to-day chores. They believe that men are better political and business leaders and should be given priority when it comes to educational opportunities. So if that is the case, and we're looking at education as a way of changing mindsets, then it becomes problematic because education is already being, men are already being prioritized insofar as education is concerned. So that has to be addressed. Yet, we are very liberal and progressive when it comes to pregnancy, sex, extramarital affairs, and even dating. And there is very little involvement in civic affairs beyond voting, yet we declare that women have the power to bring about change. So the question for us here is, how do we change this? And my thoughts go to the women of Eastern Visayas and Tacloban, because their situation is so much more different and difficult from our situation here in the National Capital Region. Imagine how much tougher it's going to be for the women out there. And what can we women here in the NCR do to make their lives a little better? I think that's a question that we should also address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CHY, for taking us through those survey results. And on that note, on that question of how do we change this, I'd like to ask the prod team to please play our TVC again on being strong and how to shine. Hello? Okay. We shouldn't let labels hold us back. But as we saw in that presentation and in that survey, there is a large disconnect in terms of labels. What are stereotypes? What are acceptable for what women and men should be doing versus what they think they should be doing? There was a huge disconnect there. But there's some good news as well. Okay. There's more openness when it comes to social aspects. Okay, for women. I'm sure a lot of the men liked it when they said that the women now are open to paying the bill, half the time at least. But there was still a push in other aspects, most notably in areas of leadership, and connected to that, areas of education and in participation in government or places of influence. These are still the gaps that we need to address, and I think that maybe in the absence of education or as a supplement to education, we also need role models to show us how to do it, to show us how to lead the way, how to break through labels. And I'm going to talk to these women here and ask them to react to those survey results. But before I do that, this is an open conversation. So for those of you who have questions and comments, you can tweet them in with the hashtag #WhipIt. And our prod team will be able to pick that up and feed it to us here so we can answer them or react to them. First, I'm going to go to that survey result on education. 65% of Filipinos believe that it's more important for men to finish a university education. Feli, as president of and co-founder of the Chinese International School, let's talk about the impact of such a perception on empowerment and on us.
Well, education really, also begins in the home. And I really think that there's such an ingrained stereotype or roles that we place our children into. And even I would be guilty of falling into that. The moment you find out you have a girl, you paint the room pink, you buy them dolls, you buy them cooking sets. You would never gift a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, daughter or if you attend a birthday party, I wouldn't buy a Nerf gun. I wouldn't buy a remote control helicopter. I wouldn't buy the DIY, plane set. So in a way, I think it begins with that education that we're feeding them as children. So we grow up with that, and that blends with such the cultural aspect in the Philippines, where again boys are given such importance. I have a lot of great girlfriends, and they feel less of a wife if they have, let's say, 3 girls, and they always have that look like, I have 3 girls. When someone asks, so how many children do you have? And they feel ashamed to admit that they don't have a boy. So it goes again with that cultural issue. And I think a third element that really shapes why we're seeing this figure is also because we are a matriarchal society. And being women, we are always giving, we're always sacrificing, we're the ones caring, we're the ones nurturing. And when push comes to shove, we'll say, okay, we'll let the man have it, because that is our programming as women. I'll share with you a little small incident with our son. He was, I think at that time, 6 years old, and then I have 2 younger daughters. And my husband came back once and had this huge bandage behind his leg, and he was explaining, and the kids were so shocked. He said, yeah, Dad came from, the emergency room. I was shooting, and, I made an error by not watching the reptile, and it bit me in my calf, and the cameraman wasn't so smart and started pulling the reptile, which was a big mistake, and so the wound the laceration became so big and the wound was so deep. And he said, stop, don't pull the reptile. So finally the reptile let go, but there was just so much blood. They rushed him to the ER. He came home, he was hobbling, and there was a big bandage on his calf. And the kids all crowded around. This was dinner time, and my son goes, Dad, what happened to you? And the girls were like, Papa, are you okay? And they were all listening, and Dad started explaining. Then after 30 seconds, and the girls were like, oh, Papa, you have a boo-boo. Should we give it a kiss, you know? And my son, Jose, goes, so, you're okay, right? You're okay? And of course, my husband goes, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, if you're okay, that's good. And he just walks away. And my husband couldn't even finish the story. So again, I don't know if it's the makeup that men are really like that. If you're fine, then you're fine. And women, again, like what Carrie was saying, we're pakiramera. We want to know. Tell us the story, you know. So it's those elements, I think.
There is also a balance in being, you know, the way that men and women are differences complement one another. So for Kim, there was someone like, okay, high five, fist pump. You've got a wound on your leg. That's like a badge of honor. Go, Dad, you know. But the girls are also complimenting that the need to care for the pain and the anguish of, wow, a laceration on your leg. Carrie, I'm going to ask you in leadership positions, because education and the education that you get has an impact on you know, the kind of leadership position you can attain. How can we make this kind of work for us? This may be a perception that we can turn around and work for us.
Well, I don't disagree that, you know, education is of course a big thing, but I think there's a huge shift also that's happened in many industries in business, whether in IT or different businesses, where, you know, it's employers or leaders just, you know, look at competence, and I think, you know, that's super important, because it also helps the thinking and the mindset on, you know, it doesn't, education doesn't begins and ends in school, and
you can work for, and hard work still has a lot to do with where you get in life.
Exactly, and I think it's whether you're male or female, your achievement and your achievement is really just could only be limited by, you know, your where you really want to take your career.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it has nothing to do. A big part of it, I think, is it's the societal shift of perception that men and women are just, you know, are just equal. So education obviously matters, but I think in today's society, it's really about it's really about competence.
Yeah, it's exactly also what you said in your Hall of Fame quote outside, where you say that as we move forward, gender becomes less important, but it's more about capacity and capability. Okay. Now, on that note, on the workplace, there was a finding that said 54% of women believe that women who work tend to be pushy. Okay, 2 points here. Ladies, is pushy a bad thing, or are we just being proactive and just getting things done?
Well, I notice kasi in meetings, when we give our opinions, we're so opinionated daw, and sometimes, cool it, Sam, cool it. Pwede ba? Yung parang we have to tone down what we think. And is that the way to be a participant of a meeting? So it goes both ways. Sometimes it's positive, negative, but sometimes I do feel the sense that they do take it negatively, the guys, when you have so much in mind and you do share it. And pushy becomes aggressiveness, and aggression means negativity.
But Natasha, pushy can be good, especially sometimes in your field.
Yeah, absolutely. We're expected to be pushy. We won't get any stories if you're not pushy. And that's definitely something I've learned. You know, growing up, I never really felt like I was discriminated against because I was a woman. I think I'm lucky I grew up in a household of 5 women. Mm-hmm. But despite that, when I started working in this field, I realized that I really had to push to get there. It's very intimidating, especially when you're, like I was talking about my coverage in Macau with the boxing, with my boxing coverage, and it takes a lot of courage to be pushy sometimes. But the other thing, actually, we're talking about the advantages of these stereotypes, and I found myself reading more and pushing myself more because I wanted to make sure that I was in their level, you know, because you begin to believe when men treat you a certain way, you begin to believe it, especially when you're around that environment. And the good side, at least for me, was that I took that as a source or as a motivation or inspiration to keep pushing and to keep reading. And I'll tell you for sure, I know more about boxing than any of the men here. That's for sure.
Can I just add to that? I think let's say in a very male-dominated field, there are many ways to skin a cat. So I was very pushy, I was very aggressive, but I would use my boss and had him around my finger, and I would get my way by having him push what I wanted. So I was always the sweet, nice, civilized lady that I was supposed to be. So I think there's also nothing wrong about working it a different way.
Working it a different way. We were talking about this. You get more bees with honey than with vinegar, right? So there's something to be said about being nice, being charming, which we women are all very good at, right? To get our way or to get things done.
Can I say something on that point? I think it also depends, right? Because when I'm covering politics, you can't be sweet and charming. You can't try to talk to a politician, a male politician, and try to be sweet and charming because they're going to take it a different way. So you have to be pushy. It's almost like in my field, the pushier you are, the more they respect you because they say, okay, this woman's serious. You know, she's here for work. But if you come in and try to kind of charm your way through, not only are the other reporters going to start talking, but the politicians aren't going to respect you either because they know, especially male politicians, you know, they're so used to getting their way and you're trying to deal with power, you kind of also have to be pushy. So I guess it's different. It depends on the field.
Knowing what hat to put on and when, right? That's also another way to break through little barriers or labels. But the other point that I thought was interesting about this perception, 54% of women believe that women who work tend to be pushy. So this is actually coming from other women. Gee, I'm going to throw this to you. Do you sometimes feel that a lot of the criticism or stereotyping comes from women?
Absolutely. I think I grew up in a household where my mom was a single mom. So she had to assert herself because she was the only one working. And so I think growing up, being raised by a single mom, I have the mindset that no one is going to make something happen for you unless you do it for yourself. And yet other women also tend to be like, oh, but she's so, you know, she doesn't take no for an answer. She's so pushy. But it really has to also do with your upbringing. And it does start with family life. My daughter, who's 8 right now, she's really into Ninja Turtles. And she's 8 years old. She doesn't want the dolls. She wants all the nunchucks and all the... And I'm like, okay, girl, if that's what you want, go for it. You know, so it's also starting as a parent not being... My son likes to wear pink, you know, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's cool. Go ahead, you know, because if they see you as a parent going, yeah, but that's too girly, or stop crying, you're being such a girl, then you're already, you know, set up that foundation in the future for them to look at that gender bias. So yes, it does start at the home, and being raised by people that teach you to be assertive will obviously rub off on you as you grow older.
The change that we want to see starts with us, within ourselves, and also when we teach our friends, or even and our children. The other thing, this is what I wanted to bring up as well. 70% of men think that women need to downplay their personality to be accepted. And this one, we were talking about this backstage, and we had quite a discussion on this, and I was telling the ladies, and I'll share with the audience, sometimes when I give a talk very young girls will ask me, I have friends, guy friends, who tell me I don't want a girl who's better than me. I don't want a girl who's smarter than me. And when I talk to them about empowerment, they ask me, is the price of that being successful but being alone? And Miss Anna, is it really going to be worth it? Well, I'm not exactly the poster girl for relationships when it comes to that. But I will ask the ladies here, we had an interesting discussion. Do we need to dumb ourselves down or to tone down our personalities to be accepted? I'm going to start with a little anecdote here. Kim is very open about saying that Feli was so out of his league. Okay? So out of his league. And he was very intimidated by her. But nonetheless, he set forth, such fortitude, set forth to conquer her heart by doing what? Taking her around Metro Manila in a Vespa. And that was, he said, the way he swept her off her feet. Literally, Metro Manila streets were never so romantic until I heard this story. So let's talk a little bit about that. In that context, that's also important to a lot of young women. We want to have it all. We want a family in whatever form that comes in. We want to have everything. Let's talk about the need. Do we need to downplay our personality?
Well, it depends on the situation. I think for me, it has to come that you have to be who you are to really make a point. I mean,